Hello and welcome to the Auburn on Main podcast. My name is Jonathan Glover, Communications Manager for the City of Auburn, and this is episode 74. Episode 74, Angie.
Wow.
Angie, how you doing?
We're almost at the quarter quell.
The quarter quell?
Wow.
Okay. I don't think that's the thing, but okay.
The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I haven't. Yeah, I just watched the one movie.
75. We'll bring that up next time.
What does that mean, though?
Every 25 years, they would do like something special for the Hunger Games, which actually sucked for everybody else.
Yeah.
So
like the third quarter quell.
Yeah, that's when they made PETA and Katniss go back into the arena. They made the winners of the
PETA,
previous.
right? PETA?
PETA?
Such a weird name.
Yeah.
PETA.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Okay, we're joined today by our human services team. We have Jody Davison, our human services director.
Hello.
And Drew Conley.
Hi, good morning.
How you doing?
Good.
Awesome. It is the morning. It's 9 a.m. We usually don't record this at 9 a.m. Thank you for being good sports about that.
Yeah, thank you for squeezing us in.
We used to do it at 10 and then we moved it to 2 because like at 10 a.m. everyone's like, ugh. And that's like when your day like proper starts, you know, like you're in the midst of like the most that you're going to get done. You're at peak productivity and it's like, oh, we got to go
At
record
10
a
a.m.?
podcast. I think so.
Maybe.
I feel like people get into the swing. I guess it depends on when you start. But
Early.
Yeah.
Early is 7:30, 7.
I'm an early or late person, especially for writing, like creativity. I like to be
early.
really early or really late, like 9 p.m. late.
I mean, if I can get in the office at 7:30 or before, I can get a lot of things done in here by myself. So, but then, you know, Drew and I were having a discussion this morning about exercising in the morning, and I'm like, that poses problems. And he says, what, you got to get out of bed? I go, that's a problem.
I don't like early working out.
You have to shower. There's all these extra things you have to do if you
Like
work
I
out in the
smell
morning.
bad when I work out.
I feel like I have to, when I work out in the morning, I have to shower twice. Once before I go to the gym because I don't want to be stinky. And then once after the gym. So I've showered twice in like an hour and a half, basically.
I just work out at home, but then, you know, you've got
Yeah, I think you just have to be okay smelling bad in the morning.
hair and makeup
Because
and all
sometimes
the
you don't
things.
even brush your teeth.
Never
Right?
want to be that person.
Yeah.
Well, how's everyone doing? Angie, we just did kickball yesterday.
We are kicked last in gym class.
yeah.
We lost.
We
twice?
lost twice.
Pretty handily. It wasn't even very close.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They were really good.
They were
Oh,
really
good.
good. Hey, I have an exciting update though. I think I kicked my sciatic nerve into a more comfortable position because it feels much better today.
Did somebody do that to you or did it to yourself?
I did it to myself. It's been getting progressively worse since we started kickball, and I've been thinking I probably need to stop doing that, which is good. I think next week is the last week for a while because the season just ends. But I woke up this morning feeling pretty good.
Nice.
It's good.
Certainly better than yesterday.
Which usually isn't the case after kickball. So
No.
something happened last night. I don't remember where you like fell or something. Yeah, I don't think you fell.
Oh,
but
yeah. Somebody kicked like a line drive pretty hard up the middle, and Jillian didn't get it. And then I was like, okay, I'll get it. And then I was like, I wasn't expecting it to be so fast after her. Like she let all of the momentum through somehow. So then it just like stumbled for a second. No, it was fine.
Maybe that's what fixed it.
Maybe.
Maybe that's.
I think what the thing is I can't not try really hard. So I would kick with everything I'm trying, right? And which I probably shouldn't do with my sciatic nerve hurting that bad, but it worked.
Did
So
something snap and
I
pop
don't recommend
in
it.
your,
I don't remember.
in your kick?
Maybe it did when I was sleeping.
Maybe.
But it was great though.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. Yep. We
Drew,
have
you've
shorts
been
now,
climbing?
so.
Yeah, no, I had a pretty good session on Tuesday. Some routes you get to the top, other routes you fail, but that's okay.
It's been
It's the journey
improving.
that mattered.
Sure. I mean, it's cool because you know you have a route that you're trying to work on. They call it a project, and then over time, eventually, hopefully, you get your project, and it's a good feeling, and then you're off to the next one.
I was telling Angie about that yesterday. You're projecting, right? You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Your flash grade, project grade.
Right. I do remember. It's the one that you know you can do with confidence, like
Yeah, like
easy.
so V3 to me is a flash grade.
Do you boulder or do you top rope or what do you do?
I boulder.
So
yeah.
which level are you at right now?
Oh gosh, the most I can do right now is like I would say a V3, so more beginner level. And also with climbing, there's like a whole long list of weird jargon.
There
and,
is, yeah.
The different holds all have different names,
Which don't make any sense most of the time. Like the one that feels really good, they call it a jug, like a milk jug.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't think to call it that. Or like a slope is like one that's very rounded. So their crimp is like when it's really like finger heavy.
Yeah, just like on the fingertips, you're holding with your fingertips.
I don't like that at all. It gives me monster.
The crimps.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Those are traditionally
Hence the don't fall rope.
Yeah.
Right. Does your height make it easier or harder for you?
I will say that everyone who climbs is going to naturally have an advantage and a disadvantage. And so the advantage that I have is my reach, right? Like I can skip holds. So each route is designed with a specific, they call it a beta. It's a specific way you get to the top in mind. And if you climb to the top without going the specific route, it's called breaking the beta. And it's not wrong.
I like doing it.
But if you're taller, you can break the beta by skipping holds,
Yeah.
just because you can, reach higher. So that's my advantage. I think, I'm probably a bit heavier than most people who are in the gym. So weight wise, I think I'm at a bit of a disadvantage. But yeah, I think I struggle in what's called the start. So you have to put your hands in a certain position, and based on where you can and can't put your feet, I'm pretty kind of like crunched, and it's hard because you have to start with your weight up on the wall. You can't have like a foot on the mat. And so some starting positions that are harder for me maybe would be a lot easier for someone who's shorter. Yep. So you just got to play to your strengths, and certain holds, I think people naturally kind of gravitate towards. Some people really like crimps, like they have no problem putting their whole body weight on their fingertips, and they're really comfortable doing that. Other people like what's called a pinch, which is kind of where you're grabbing the hold like a lobster, and they just feel really strong doing that. And so you just got to play to your physiological strengths and have fun. If you're having fun, then that's the most important part.
I don't know what my strengths would be, but looks like, you
got to go for it.
It's like, Zach, we climb with Zach.
Yeah.
He's shorter.
Right.
He weighs less. So like ones where it's a small start, where you're kind of like bunched up. That's hard for me and Drew. It's really hard when you have sciatica. Hurts a lot. Or like when you start low, it can be hard for people who are taller. So yeah. But like Drew, I can accidentally break a lot of routes. You know why they call it beta? It's a fun fact.
I don't know.
So when climbing started, like Yosemite back in like the 70s and 80s, Betamax tapes were a thing. So people would record climbing routes of them doing it. So people would say, "Do you have the beta?" Which meant, "Can I see your actual tape of how to do this route?" Because they're rock routes, right? They don't have like cool little holds that you can see like in a climbing gym. So it just became that. So when you say like, "Oh, can you show me the beta?" Like Drew's talking about, you're actually watching somebody do the route. Because sometimes you're like staring at it and you're projecting it and you're like, "I don't know how to do this," because it does not make sense. And it's probably just something technique-wise you haven't learned yet, like pushing your hip in or just doing some weird thing. And then as soon as you watch somebody do it and then you replicate it, you're like, "Wow, that was way easier than I thought it would be." And then through that repetition, you get better and better because your brain just learns those little micro movements and how to actually position yourself. And you can tell somebody who's new at climbing versus somebody who's done it for a long time.
Right.
Just based on like your body control and like how you're just like your ease of movement for certain things. Somebody who's like struggling, you can just really tell like their feet are like slamming into the wall. So there's like a lot of like chaos when somebody's starting out. So it's just kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
Neat.
Anyway, Drew and Jody.
Jody, real quick, we just talked a whole lot about this. What's something you've been up to?
Gardening.
I love to garden.
You've giving us some.
I have a tractor.
Oh my gosh.
I love my tractor. It's a 3 Series John Deere. So if that means anything to other people who have tractors, it's not a baby tractor. It's a bigger tractor.
Like, do you have a lot of land?
I have an acre.
Homesteading, yeah.
And I put in a garden this year with big, huge cattle troughs. And you need a tractor to be able to lift and move them. They're very heavy, especially when you fill them with soil. So I have things growing finally.
You gave us some sugar snap peas.
Yeah.
Those have been great. Christina just dropped off a whole thing of vegetables.
Christina planted a garden as well. I have a tree to take down, so my garden is not getting the amount of sun I had hoped for. So my fruit is down. It needs direct sunlight, lots of vitamin D. But I love communing with plants. It's kind of my, it's my space.
Oh, I love that's so cute.
I got some things to do this weekend, and I like food science. So
I like the spoils of it. So if you guys keep growing stuff, we'll keep eating it.
I'm gonna make you some more zucchini bread with zucchini flour, not wheat flour. For all
Jillian made zucchini bread.
Anybody who's gluten intolerant, there's no flour in it whatsoever.
Oh, cool.
It's good bananas.
Do you make that flour yourself? Oh, that's
wow.
So cool.
I do. I make my own zucchini flour.
Oh, that's really cool.
It's amazing. I love that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Camille's been positively abreast with zucchini this summer. Like so much zucchini.
Bring it over. I'll take it.
Well, I love it too. We've been doing like stir fries and a whole bunch of stuff. And then Christina, I don't even know what she dropped off. She just handed me a bag, and I said, "What's this?" She said, "It's for you."
Yep, she's got a really good. She's got a good harvest going on this year.
Probably some tomatoes, things like that. Okay, so you're both here to talk about human services and all the work that's going on. So let's just. I don't think either of you have been on this particular podcast. Drew, you were on with the mayor. We were talking like 3 years ago when you started. So
a while ago.
Let's just quickly go over what it is that human services does, and I'll let either of you take it however you want to talk about it. What is human services, and what does anti-homelessness do?
So our department is called the Human Services Department, but we have essentially 2 divisions. We have human services. Those are community grants that we give out to organizations. It's an application process. We have a human services committee that determines the level of funding that the organizations get. We do try to work really collaboratively with those organizations in the anti-homelessness work that we do. And then we have, we also have a federal grant, CDBG grant, that's run through that particular section of our department. We're currently using the CDBG funds. That's a HUD program. Sorry, acronyms. Some people are like, what's that? It's a
community development block grant.
Yeah, it's a HUD program. We're actually using it for public facility improvements at the ACRC that we're going to talk about in a little bit. So we'll circle back to that in a minute. But then we have anti-homelessness. Drew Conley is our supervisor, anti-homelessness supervisor. And so he is responsible for all things out on the street. And he leads that work in our department. And I defer to him to a lot of the coordination of that work. It's really a team effort, but I will let Drew kind of take it from there and talk a little bit more deeply about what we see and do on the street, and just chime in as he leads that discussion.
Sure. So we work with single adults, couples, seniors, veterans, youth and young adults, and families with children who are homeless in the city of Auburn. Our program is focused on long-term resources, so we don't do really anything short-term. We're not doing food or water, blankets, sleeping bags, things like that. We focus on long-term solutions. So for some people, that means employment. We can help a client with a resume, help with interview preparation, try to point them in the right direction for finding employment. For other clients, it looks like treatment. Inpatient or outpatient. We can usually get a client, connected with some type of treatment program, same day or next day. Depends upon the client's drug of choice. But we work with a lot of clients who have substance use disorder, and so treatment is certainly something that our program emphasizes. But I think most of what we do is housing, so that housing, can mean a lot of different things, right? So for some clients, that's emergency housing, like shelter or a safe parking program. Other clients, it's transitional housing. Some clients, it's clean and sober housing. Others, it's permanent housing, like an apartment. And then for other clients, it's what's called permanent supportive housing. So that's, I think, where a lot of our efforts in the anti-homelessness side, go to, and we do all the case management for our clients top to bottom. So we help clients reorder ID cards, driver's licenses, Social Security cards. We take clients to the DOL. We take clients to the Social Security office in Kent. We assist clients with getting disability verification signed as part of the paperwork process for getting into permanent supportive housing, so we can connect a client with a provider. We have a great partnership with HealthPoint here in town. We transport clients to application appointments. Oftentimes that's somewhere in Seattle. We transport clients to lease signing and intake and move-in appointments. So there's not a lot that we don't do. And a big part of the anti-homelessness side is we walk the parks. So the City of Auburn, there's over 50 neighborhood parks, community parks, open use spaces, and special use areas.
It's a lot.
And we do our best to try to walk all of those at least once per month. And it's a lot of acreage, but we do our best. Some parks, we try to hit once per week, like Brandon Park. I know there's been a lot of community interest in helping Brandon Park be safe and clean, and we want to make sure our park staff is safe as well. And so we try to walk Brandon Park at least once per week. Other parks, we try to hit once every 2 weeks. And then other parks where we don't get a lot of complaints, we try to hit once per month. So it's a lot of walking, a lot of time spent in the field. We prioritize safety in everything we do. So I think that's kind of a good general overview of what anti-homelessness is.
Yeah, it's a lot. We've been with you on some of those walks.
Mm-hmm.
I think
We'll chime in. Auburn is beautiful, by the way. There's a lot of Auburn is beautiful. There's a lot of beautiful areas, and when you're out trucking through the parks, you've got an opportunity at certain times of year to really just kind of take it all in because it's very beautiful.
Yeah, that's what Nar would say. She would talk about the beauty of the job as well. Nar being my sister who interned with them.
So we'll just talk about Narina for a second. We're just because I know Narina's going to watch this. We're so happy that she's off in college to become an engineer, but we are. This is day 4. No Narina, a Narina fast.
Summer
whatever you want to call it. Like she's missed.
Yeah, and she was active with Drew, right? She was out
with Drew.
Working with clients, walking the parks.
It's an incredible positive attitude. We learned a lot and benefited just by association with Narina Pagosian.
Every time I talk with you, the department go out on outreach walks. I learn a lot. It's always humbling to see the work that you do, and that you're in the thick of it, literally, sometimes in the woods, working with people and getting them housed and getting them access to services and taking them places. I think that's super awesome. Auburn's also unique that we were one of the first cities to lead this model. And maybe, Jody, you can talk about that a little bit of why this works and how it works and why it's kind of unique for a city to bring all of that within its own confines rather than contracting a lot of it out, which we still do, but
we do. Those are strategic partnerships, though. And I will just talk about funding for a second. In that whole funding process, we have really looked at the volume of contracts that we used to have versus what we have now. We are really looking at the services that those nonprofits provide. Do they address the needs of our city? And those are all those are in the mindset when funding decisions are made. But in tandem to that, which makes Auburn, we call it the Auburn model, it makes it very unique, is that our city gets to choose what our city looks like. When you hand that work over to another nonprofit or another legal entity, in essence, you don't have the choice of direct impact of what that looks like in your city because you're relying on a nonprofit to do all of the things that your city needs. It doesn't really work as a feasible model for a city that wants to have a direct impact in what happens on their streets. So Auburn has city staff. We're paid city workers, and our job is to go out and do the same work. We have access to do all the things that the nonprofits do. We are homelessness assessors. We have HMIS. We navigate all of those systems just like those nonprofits do. But we know who is in our city because we're out in the parks and we're out on the street and we know these individuals. Some of them we know well. Some of them float in and out. And so that particular model, that element gives us direct impact into kind of what happens in our city. But the second part of that is really the accountability piece. And I'll share this. There's two sides of what I call charitable giving.
Mm-hmm.
There's the side that feels great. Okay. I have resources and you don't. So I give you what I think you need. And then I think that you feel better because now you're comfortable. You have all the things you need to live in the camp you've created outside. And maybe I give you a tent and blankets and I give you food and shelter and all of those things. And now you're comfortable. And now I feel good because I gave you something. And I think that it's helping you. But in reality, what that does is it allows you to stay comfortable in the situation that you're in.
Mm-hmm.
The side that people don't like when it comes to charity is the side that says, no, I'm not giving you blankets and I'm not going to give you a tent and I'm not going to help you be comfortable because I want something better for you. And because, like Drew has talked about, probably not on this podcast, but these are not my words, these are Drew's, but with all of our tools, skills, and abilities, we build the best ladder that we can, and then we lower the ladder down, and we ask you to step up on the rung. Get on the ladder, and we hold the ladder at the top, and we help you climb that ladder.
Mm-hmm.
If I just throw down tents and blankets and all the food down in the hole, it doesn't get you out of the hole.
Right.
So there's that side of giving that a lot of organizations struggle with, and that's the accountability piece.
For
so
sure. Yeah,
Auburn,
and individuals too. Struggle with that,
Auburn
yeah.
approaches it with compassion, which we have a lot of. All of the team that we have, that we work with, that work here, have a vested interest in the human condition. I would have to say that. We care deeply about these people that we interface with. We are impacted by them.
Definitely.
Especially when something happens to one of them. But we expect them to get up and get on the ladder.
Yeah, some of these people you've known for a long time, right?
Yeah, they don't want to get on the rung.
Or something happens, or you keep in track with them, or you keep in touch with them throughout the process and after they've been housed too.
Do you do that, Drew? Do you keep in contact? I know Christina does.
Yeah.
After a client's been housed?
Sure.
Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just touch in every once in a while.
Typically what I do is when I get a client into housing, at their lease signing appointment, once they have their keys and their mail key and they're all set in their room, like I'll put a boundary there with the client and I'll just say, hey, now that you're in housing, if you have any problems, any issues, please go through your case manager here.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the housing that we get clients into, they'll have some type of staff or case management support there at their new place. And I'll just tell them like, hey, if you have any issues, like please go through your case management here, just because they're going to be able to most directly assist you.
Right.
If for whatever reason that's not an option, like you have my number, but I do have to go back into the field and start this process over with another client.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we don't always have the bandwidth to do case management for the clients that we're trying to get into housing, as well as the clients that we've already housed. And so,
Yeah, for sure,
if there is some issue, certainly like we will step in. We don't want a client to exit housing back into homelessness, right? Because then we're back to square one. But I do try to set that boundary in place because, the chapter of someone's life where I'm involved in their situation should be as short as possible, right? Like we want homelessness to be as short as possible. And so if I step in and point you in the right direction and help you get stabilized, like at that point, our hope is that clients, work on their mental health, their physical health, their emotional health and move on. And so I don't hear from a lot of clients that I get into housing, but that's okay. And
I preferred, yeah.
Might be a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Things are
for
going
sure.
well.
yeah. If things are going well and they moved on with their life, great. Yeah. I don't need, I guess like, how do I say this? I'm not looking for like any type of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's just, I want to point you in the right direction, get you stabilized, and then, right to the next client. And So I do try to set that boundary. I don't know if I'm making sense.
No,
No,
it makes
you're-
no. You
you're
are.
making
Let
perfect
the
sense.
success speak for itself. Right?
Yeah, because the success belongs to the client,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
Like it's not on me. In the same way, like if I laid out a plan for a client and then they didn't do that, they weren't accountable to themselves to participate, like that failure to follow through that's not on me,
Sure.
right? Like that's the client choosing not to follow through on the plan, and that's on them. But in the same way, like when they succeed, that's not my success. That success belongs to the client, and they can look in the mirror and be like, wow, I did what I had, I followed the plan, and yeah, Drew or Jody or the team pointed me in the right direction, but I get to own this, and that's pretty cool. And we want clients to take ownership of their situation. So all that to say, I don't really maintain a lot of contact with the clients that we've gotten into to housing. Yeah.
And we don't want to. We don't want them to circle back around because they have a connection to us. Or we don't want them coming back to the shelter to visit friends, or let that chapter of your life be closed, and hopefully be able to move on.
Absolutely.
To a non-homeless life.
Super important.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of, you had mentioned before the Auburn Community Resource Center.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Let's
So
talk about that building.
it's being renovated right now, right?
Yeah. So City of Auburn purchased that building at the beginning of last year, 2025. Three-quarters of that space is dedicated right now to serving vulnerable populations through different mechanisms. The Auburn Food Bank is at one end. They contract with the city to run the day center and the night shelter. And then we have the Auburn Resource Center space where city staff go every single week on Thursdays from 1:30 to 3:30 to set up shop with other providers and get, it's like a mini resource fair. We could call it that, right? You come in and we try to help you with all the things you need. Eventually community court will be in the space next door. And then right now we have a vacant slot in there. We are currently using a Health and Human Services grant that we were awarded a couple years ago to do some plumbing, roof access, and some HVAC replacements in the building. Through that process, there was identified a need to reinforce some of the trusses up in the ceiling to be able to hold these newer units that will push more air through those spaces. Are definitely needed in those spaces, but they do way more. So we had to kind of stop and do some truss modifications up above. There are plans, although not in concrete, but trying to vet that all out to hopefully expand the night shelter space into the next bay, which is the Resource Center Bay.
Yeah.
To accommodate seniors. We could talk about that if you want to. And to create a section for women. Right now, the women and the men all sleep in the same open space, which is okay for some people and uncomfortable for most women. So we'd like to get them kind of in their own section together. And then we are seeing an increase. Nobody's talking about it, so maybe we should talk about it, Jonathan. Nobody is talking about the fact that seniors are being priced out of housing in the Puget Sound region. They were barely making it by on their $900 or their $1,500, threshold of Social Security benefits. The cost of housing is so high now that they can't afford to pay rent and buy groceries and utilities and all of those things. A lot of these folks that we're seeing show up at the Resource Center all have age-related brain changes. So we, dementia, some Alzheimer's, some in the earlier stages where they just don't have good decision-making anymore. Families have assisted to help, but most of the families have backed out of the picture. Or these folks are filtering through the different departments over at the Multicare Auburn Regional Medical Center. And then after discharge, we hope there's a plan for them, but there are some that end up being brought over to our shelter. There's no viable immediate housing. They don't qualify for a nursing home, or they don't want to go. They have the autonomy to choose not to do that. They fall into a little bit of a loophole because they don't have the good decision-making abilities. And And the City of Auburn can't just step in as a guardian. We don't have that ability to do that. So we're working with people that, you know, have some impairment in decision making, and they're very vulnerable and frail. I think Drew would agree with me that the case management for one senior with those kind of conditions surrounding them is almost double time commitment to someone who doesn't have that.
Mm-hmm.
They have mobility needs. Their fall risks. There's so many things that we have to address. They can't remember how to access funds.
Yeah, and it's not like they have an opportunity to make income in a lot of cases,
they
right?
can't go back to work.
So,
no.
Yeah, that's super tough. And I'm Drew, I'm sure you're working with our senior center on some of those, right?
Yeah,
with the resource navigation.
We've sharpened our partnership with the Auburn Senior Activity Center. Super grateful for Min over there.
Mm-hmm. She's amazing.
The work that she does, which is very similar to what we do. Her role doesn't really have the outreach aspect to it, but she's doing a lot of case management, and Min is actually tabling at a resource center on Thursdays now, which has been great.
She comes in.
It's a collaborative effort to try to get seniors into housing. And to Jody's point, a lot of seniors can't supplement their income through earned income just because they're past working years or there's some type of physical disability. And so, and just to kind of be super honest, a lot of seniors, I think are quite set in their ways. And,
yes,
I think, most people listening to the podcast can understand kind of what we mean by that.
Right.
And so we try to connect the client to the resource because the client sets the goal, right? When I sit down with a client, I ask them pretty quick in that case management conversation, like, what is your goal? And so if the senior client is like, yeah, I'm looking to get stabilized in some type of housing, how do we navigate those conversations when they're, mentally they're in decline and they are set in their ways and their income is very limited and can't be supplemented. Really the only increase they'll see in their income is like a cost of living adjustment from Social Security, which is
$49.
Yeah, it's not, and so we do our best. It's hard, and then I think the part that people really don't want to talk about is family members, typically younger family members, taking advantage of these seniors financially, and we do see that.
We do.
It can be hard for anyone to realize that, and come to terms with a family member who's manipulating them, and so it's a challenge to see someone being exploited by a younger family member, and especially someone who's so vulnerable medically, but also, the fact that they're homeless, sleeping in a shelter. So to Jody's point earlier, like the case management, the paperwork, everything that goes into it is a lot more than maybe a single adult who's 35 to 55 and is homeless. So
these seniors are people who kind of led regular lives and then eventually at some point mentally declined, or their families took advantage of them or something, and then just became homeless, got priced out, whatever.
It's kind of every story like that is a little bit different. I very quickly, we'll just call her Betty. Betty wound up in the city of Auburn because she was living in another city and then got transferred into a medical system. She had a fall at home. She was already in mental decline. Husband's about the same age. He can't care for her anymore, but she's still vocal and making decisions when clearly she should not be. And then she falls and she ends up in an ambulance. And if, people who've dealt with grandma and grandpa understand that if there's a traumatic physical event, like it has a cognitive impact, right? Just riding in an ambulance, going to the emergency room, with a broken hip, right? That can actually make brain changes. The person can come out of that at a certain age and never be the same again, just because of the trauma of going through that. So this particular person, this is what happened, and then ended up at the Auburn Regional Medical Center, was discharged out of there, and ended up transported over to the Sundown M. Night Shelter here in the city, and she was dropped off, and staff over there found her wandering in the parking lot. Took months and months and months just to finally try to get through the little bits and pieces of what she could tell us. First, we didn't even know who she was. She didn't want to give her name to anyone, so we've got a Jane Doe on our hands, and trying to figure out who this person is and kind of get moving with that. And so Angee, this story is somewhat all the same, but it varies in terms of topic. There's a decline in brain function. There's a family who can't convince this person that they need to take steps A, B, and C. And then now, when you have an economy where you can't afford to be on your own anyway, it just leads to these seniors being evicted or losing their housing, and they don't have a support system. I mean, I could never imagine my grandma living in a shelter, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there would have to be some family somewhere in there who could step in and help. But the reality is that a lot of these seniors that end up there don't have that. Right. So the ones that do have that family support system, they're not homeless. Mm. They're living out their lives with other family members as they should be. Aging and declining in place is what kind of we all hope for our grandmas and grandpas, right. When we're thinking about our own families and loved ones, hope there would somebody. So Drew and I are starting to be in a business of saving grandma and grandpa. To the best that we can, trying to help these folks.
Yeah, and I think if there's anything that listeners can take away from that is that, every case is completely its own thing. Yeah. Every case is different. There are some similarities for sure, but then also even just listening you talk about it, it takes so much time and energy for each one, and you're all fielding dozens, if not hundreds, a week or a month, a year, right? So you're dealing with an increasing caseload, but the work you're doing is incredibly important. And the fact that the City of Auburn prioritizes that makes us unique in that sense. And we are more equipped, and I'll just say more equipped than others. And I won't point fingers to anybody, even in the region, but we're just more equipped to handle that sort of pivot, right? So you're saying we're seeing an increase in senior population. Because we fund human services and homelessness services within the City of Auburn, we can pivot a little easier than others.
And then honestly, just to give credit to the nonprofits that we partner very closely with. The work that they do for the city is vital. They run shelters. They have programs that we don't run within our own city, and so those community connections that we have with those nonprofits. We are sometimes able, if the person comes into our realm and we take them into case management, we're sometimes able to transition them through some of those channels a little bit faster because of our community connections. And I'll say we pull out all the blocks and stops when there's children involved. When we find a family with children, Drew, I don't know, somehow all the families end up in his department because the man he's a miracle maker when it comes to trying to get families with children into some kind of emergency shelter. South King County is an emergency family desert. There are not a lot of them. So we partner with Fusion up in Federal Way. Last I spoke to them, they had a 35 family waiting list. We partner with Vine Maple Place. They do incredible work. But as well, there's a waiting list. And so we have families living in their cars. Sometimes they don't have a car and they're on the street. And so we kind of just scour. I don't know if you want to talk about families and children, Drew. I know it's a heavy topic. It's heart-wrenching. And Drew somehow is able to do this incredible work with day-old babies.
Yeah. We had a family come in a couple months ago, and it was a mom and a dad and their 2-year-old and a 1-day-old. They had a 1-day-old baby with them in their car. They came to our resource center from the hospital, and
she just delivered.
Wow.
Yeah, she had delivered, I think, the day before, and there's so many questions that we have when we sit down with a client, and you could ask them, like, why aren't you working with the social worker at the hospital? Like, why isn't the hospital put you somewhere? And go so many different ways. But the only thing that I do know really is that this family is sitting in front of me and they're in need. And so, it's tough, and doing an HMIS assessment for a 1-day-old baby. It's hard, just because you're like, man, I'm having to come to terms right now with the fact that I'm trying to do case management for a homeless person who's a day old, and right. that was hard. And it is interesting because families come into our resource center, but also seeing adults and veterans and couples, and unless they're already working with someone from the team, they're kind of assigned to team members at random, and it is kind of unique how I seem to get assigned a lot of the families
with kids. Christina gets all the seniors. Christina and Haley are getting all the seniors.
With families, it's hard because let's say you have a family of 4. That's 4 times the amount of paperwork, right. than a single adult, and so we're scrambling to get Social Security cards and birth certificates and IDs for the adults and all the income verification paperwork in order, and so we'll try to house them through an emergency shelter like Fusion or Vine Maple. Mm-hmm. If they're in their car, we might try to make a referral to a family safe parking program. I know of one in Covington and another up on the east side over in Kirkland. Mm-hmm. But we're trying to nominate them for housing through the county system through coordinated entry, and anytime we're working with a family, they will take priority because of how vulnerable the kids are. And it's hard working with homeless children emotionally, just seeing the suffering that they go through. I will say, like, just from my experience in this job, like, children between the ages of birth and about 4 act pretty like a homeless 4-year-old is going to act like any other 4-year-old. They'll run around our resource center and they want to color and play games and stuff. But around 5, 6, you start to see a change. And I think that's around the time the children realize that something is very, very wrong. And it's hard seeing the mental and emotional burden that these 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds have to go through. And one thing that I try to keep in mind is I try to have as little interaction with the children as possible. Mm-hmm. And the reason why is because when we do get the family stabilized, I don't want the children to think that, like, Mr. Drew got them into housing. I want them to think, wow, mom and dad got me into housing. Mm-hmm. I want the kids' nervous system to be able to, trust that mom and dad, okay, they're taking care of us. Like, I don't want them to think that anytime something goes wrong, like Mr. Drew has to show up and restabilize a family or whatever. I want them to trust and know that we were in a tough spot, but mom and dad got us out. So I'll work with the parents. I work with the parents, closely, but I want the children to have the trust and the bond and the stability coming from mom and dad. Does that make sense?
It makes that takes a lot of intention, because I also think it's so easy to get attached to kids and want to make them feel safe. So the fact that you work with such intention, by the way, for anyone listening, I think you guys are just the most compassionate team ever. Just hearing you guys talk about the work you do, and I feel like I always learn something new when I talk to you both. But you guys are such a compassionate team and such good people.
You're kind. Thank you.
I really respect and admire the work that you all do. But even when I see Arthur or just like any kids, I get attached to them so quick. I'm like, oh, what can I do to make their day? And you have to work with such vulnerable children. So
we do have goodie bags at the resource center. We We did do that. It helps them to have something to focus on while we're working on paperwork with parents, and we're trying to help meet some of those needs. Let's just really quickly, if I can, especially when it comes to families, there's one thing, and then Drew's going to talk about it. There's one thing that's just a deal breaker when it comes to housing. It's an absolute deal breaker. Like, there's nothing we can do if the family isn't willing, and those are animals.
Oh yeah. If they have an animal for housing,
it's almost a deal breaker.
Oh wow.
Yes and no. I think a lot of shelters don't. Most shelters don't allow animals. And that would be for single adults, right. For adult couples, and for families.
Yeah.
Shelters. Some shelters will allow for emotional support animals or service animals, but yeah, it's tough when the family has an animal that they deeply care for and have children, and you're trying to make connections to some type of stability, but yeah, it's true. A lot of programs just don't allow animals, and so then we have to have the conversation. Well, can we get the animal fostered? There are foster programs in the region where the animal can go to a safe and stable house, and then we try to get the family stabilized, and then reunited with their animal at a later date. Oftentimes, that's not an option. Mm-hmm. I think we've all had pets in our lives that mean a great deal to us. It's easy to judge the situation and say, like, so you're putting your animal in front of your kid. I try not to look at it that way. I think people just see the animal as part of their family, and they don't want to let the animal go. And so that part of it is hard, because I think, a third party would look at the situation and be like, yeah, just give your animal to the Humane Society and move into housing. But, a lot of parents just don't see it that way, and that it's hard. No matter what the situation is when it comes to homeless families with children, it's hard.
For sure.
What do you guys do when a family is not willing to take up resources, whatever the case may be, and the children are now in a vulnerable situation?
It depends. It really depends. It depends on the situation and on what we see with the children. Obviously, if the homelessness is not a qualifier to have, Child Protective Services step in, that doesn't mean the children are being abused in any way. It's a situation that none of us want to look at, and housed people look at it and go, oh, well, that shouldn't be allowed. But just because you're living in a car with your family does not mean that you're not cared for by your parents. Yeah. So that, Angee, just depends. Do we suspect abuse? If we suspect abuse, we are not mandated reporters, but we will access other channels if we suspect that child's life is in danger. Other channels to try to check on the child. We have advised parents to report themselves to Child Protective Services, which can be very beneficial. Back in the day, everybody was afraid they would swoop in and remove your children from you. Mm-hmm. But family unification, family reunification is always a goal if possible. And so by contacting Child Protective Services does not mean the parents are going to lose custody of their children. But what it can do is it can open up doors to other resources that we may not have, because there's another entity looking to see what the condition is that the child is living in. Is it eminently danger to their life, their safety? And so does this family need additional supports outside of kind of what we can offer? So depending on the situation, we will either advise the family or make connections to try to safeguard the children.
It's not a popular thing, I think if someone were to hear that a case manager is telling a family to call CPS on themselves. I think most people would maybe take offense to that, but we have to give clients, but especially parents with children, like we have to give them hard truths. And to Jody's point, people will equate CPS with, my children being taken from me, but that's just not the case. There are resources that CPS has access to as a larger entity than we have, here within our, just as one department within a local city government. And if it means that CPS can coordinate some type of shelter stay or hotel or motel stay, or maybe provide access to a voucher, I think, families have to be willing to explore those options, because it is emergency situation. It is an emergency situation when a family is homeless because of the vulnerability posed to the children. So, yeah, we have to give difficult truths to our clients, and sometimes that might include telling a family to call Child Protective Services on themselves. We will do the most that we can on our end. But I tell clients all the time, like I have a lot of clients that I'm working with, you are your own best advocate and you have to take the lead on this. And so, because clients will ask me like, oh, is it okay if I work with this other case manager, if I research stuff on my own? And I'm like, yeah, like you got to take the lead on this. And for parents, sometimes that might mean making a tough phone call. But they have to be willing to explore all options, because it most certainly is an emergency with especially young children living outside or living in a car.
Mm-hmm.
On a lighter note, Drew can describe the dog.
Oh yeah, we talked before we started recording. Did that have to do with a family dog or just a dog you saw out and about?
We got a text from our contacts over in the police department about a family who had been evicted, and all their stuff was put out on the curb, and it was causing problems. And the police just asked if we could step in and assist. So I went over there the other day, and there was a lot of stuff on the curb, and family trying to figure out what to do with it. And then I see this dog, and they told me that it was an Italian Mastiff, the Cane Corso. I don't think it was a Cane Corso. I think it was some type of Mastiff, though.
Yeah.
And it definitely was. And later I asked him, I was like, how much does the dog weigh?
That is huge.
That dog weighed 260 pounds.
Oh my God.
It's like I said to Drew, is it a small horse?
It's a small horse.
That is a small horse.
I need to see this.
That weighs more than
it. I don't know exactly.
Way more than Drew.
It didn't look like, just the way the face was, it didn't look like a Cane Corso, but
It's a big dog.
The dog was enormous, but super gentle, super sweet, just a big kind of teddy bear dog. The family was able to get a U-Haul and get all the stuff they wanted and needed into the truck, and then they
had some family support.
That's good.
Yeah, had some friend support and put the rest of the stuff on the curb, and then I got the rest of the stuff cleaned up, and it was all cleaned up by the end of the day. So not, I gave them my cards. I said I'm willing to work with them. Not quite sure what ended up happening, but they have my information. But man, that dog was big. And while I was out there, a coyote ran past us where we were. And
Jody probably saw the dog and said, nope.
Drew's like, what's going on today?
what is going on? So we see all kinds of wildlife. I've been in the field. I've seen deer. I've seen otter over in Fenster Park.
Seen a beaver, right?
I haven't seen a beaver yet.
Okay.
Haley,
You've seen chop down trees from beavers, though.
Along the White River.
There's
signs of beaver everywhere. Mm-hmm. And then Haley and I were over in the Auburn Environmental Park open space. We saw muskrats. That was cool. Christine and Haley saw mink. Of course, lots of spiders and snakes and birds, and I've seen eagles and woodpeckers and So I'm waiting to see the beaver, and I haven't seen like a bear yet, but they're out there somewhere.
Yeah, hopefully no bears. Drew, you probably have the thing that I have to the nth degree, though, when you're walking through a trail, even if people have been walking through it before you, where you just get all the spider
You
roots
put your arm
yeah.
up.
at
You
the
just
top.
walk like this.
Yeah, you do kind of have to do a
Arm
chopping
up.
motion.
You're
But
just
anytime like I'm behind people hiking or something, sometimes I'll just get hit in the face with a spider web. Like, thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Thanks for not getting that for me.
It's happened so much now over the past 3 years that I've been with the city that it doesn't bother me
You don't even
anymore.
look. You're like, yeah, there might be a spider on me. Who cares?
If I have spiders on me, it's not the end of it's not the end of the world. It is what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think I've been bitten by a spider yet.
As long as you're not scared of spiders.
But yeah, it doesn't bother me.
I like
anymore.
spiders.
Yeah.
I like some spiders. Like in the house, if you see a spider in a web, that's cool. If I see the one running down on the ground, I don't like those
wolf
ones.
spiders.
Yeah, because they're like hunting, you know. I just don't want you running on me.
I
but
like
if you're
orb
up in
weavers. The
yeah,
orb
something
weavers,
that's laying a like
misty,
a
the misty
web.
webs in the
Yeah.
fall, you know, when it
Those are
starts to
cool.
become fall and you can see them outside.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are kind of cool.
Okay, so we're gonna move on.
Sorry, kind of heavy
No, it's
topic
okay.
with this group.
I think that was great. Like Angie said, that's super interesting, and I think listeners will get a lot out of just hearing about it. These are areas of city work that a lot of people don't see necessarily every day. We do feature human services a lot in a lot of the content that we like to do, just to let people know what we're doing.
One
because
more
it
plug
is
before we go on, Jonathan.
for sure.
I just want to say this out loud before we go on.
Yeah.
Because we're kind of known for not passing out things, right? We don't give out supplies and things, but during inclement weather, all of our staff, I don't know if Drew does, but I carry clothes. We'll have clothes, jackets, right? If we come across someone who's in desperate need of socks, shoes, clothes in it's winter time, right? We aren't going to let people just suffer and die on the street, right? So we will clothe them in the summertime when it's really hot. We do have water available for these folks, right? So we don't support roving vans going around helping people be comfortable. We don't give out tents and things, but do we meet urgent and immediate needs for individuals? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we do.
We also let certain resources available. I wouldn't say certain things available when it's extreme heat and extreme cold as well, right? We talked about the resource center, so the shelter space.
Yep.
The senior center is a good space for any seniors.
Yep. We buy prescriptions for elderly people who are in desperate need of medications who can't afford it within reason, of course, within cost. But if we have a homeless client who has an infection and they need a prescription and they have no money to be able to pay for it, if we can't find out a way to get it paid for, the city has funds that we directly use, and we go to Safeway with the person and we get their medication. We do things like that to help people and meet need.
Yeah, and we don't deny that water and food and things like that are important. Those things are available at our shelter.
They are.
So, we expect people to participate in our program, and those short-term needs are readily accessible at the shelter, but people cannot just camp outside on city property, and we don't go out. When we find people camping on city property, we don't go out and hand out those short-term resources. We offer long-term resources, but we don't allow people to camp on city-owned property.
Yeah, it's like you said with the ladder, right?
Yeah.
It's a good analogy. I think that we're using our knowledge, skill, and ability to build the best system, the best ladder we know how, and then we lower it down, and then we encourage the client to take each step to get up and out of their situation. But we don't just go out and hit on blankets and stuff like that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we were going to talk about junk removal, but I think we'll probably talk another half an hour about that.
We'll do
get
a
you
part
back.
two.
Yeah. We'll
Maybe
do a
that's
part
day
2 for
two,
sure.
junk removal day 2.
Yeah.
Junk removal, debris removal. We're going to feature them in Mayor's State of the City. We're doing some content on them.
Yeah.
We did a magazine article.
We could plug for them. They do amazing work.
Yeah.
For us, very responsive to our needs and
Absolutely.
requests. They see a lot of things. They're exposed to a lot of hazards, and they do an excellent job at that work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Pick up your summer Auburn magazine. It's on the front cover. You can read all about it.
Yeah.
Cover story
We'll have
written
some
by
more
yours
storytelling.
truly.
Thank you
Written
very
by
much
Angee
for featuring them. They do really good work for us.
They sure do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we
Cool.
appreciate their team.
Okay, so just some things coming up. So this will when does this drop? The 26th, right? Of August, Wednesday. So on Friday, August 28th, party on the Plaza.
Yay!
It's our last one of the summer. Did
Oh,
you guys go
good.
to the last one?
I I did not.
July?
I went to it, yeah.
True. I saw you last year. Remember that. I didn't get to go to the one, but I'll be on this one on Friday.
Friday. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's live music. There's Slim Wizzy Band. There's country rock and blues, and then there's buckle and boot line dancing. So
Awesome.
you can do some line dancing. You'll learn how to line dance. They'll probably teach you. Well, the funny thing about line dancing is you learn how to anyway. You kind of have to if you want to be out there.
If you get out there, you kind of you're
gotta commit.
ping-ponging.
Yep, you'll do it one way or another.
Yeah.
So there'll be there's free live music. There's food trucks. That is not free. You have to pay for the food, but there's beer and wine garden. Also, you have to pay for that. But there's other vendors around, a couple crafts and things like that. So
Fun.
come out. It's at City Hall Plaza, 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. Friday, August 28th. I think that's it. I wanted to mention there's a Sammy Hagar tribute band. Yeah, we can talk about that later. Do you like Sammy Hagar?
Are they
do you even know who that is?
You're funny. Do you even know who that is?
I don't know who that is either.
Oh, he's the
What?
he was the singer after David Lee Roth in Van Halen.
Oh, wow.
He owns
I
Cabo
am
Wabo
so old.
in Cabo.
Yeah.
You guys don't know who Sammy Hagar is. I don't even know what to say to you.
What's his music? Or
Yeah, well, Van Halen, but I can't drive 55. I can't drive 55. And then I don't want to. Whatever. I'm going to say it. Mas Tequila. Three
You don't-
shots. Hey,
Really?
Mas Tequila.
No?
sounds like commercial music. Like
It's rock music.
Right?
Okay, we'll just talk about it. It's way in
I gotta
September.
have my husband watch this. Honey, Sammy Hagar
Yeah,
is commercial
and Pat
music.
Benatar, everybody loves them. It's Invincible and Mas Tequila, Pat Benatar and Sammy Hagar
I love
tribute.
it.
They're at Green
I
River
love it.
College, Student Affairs Building. Find that information on auburnwa.gov/calendar, but that's Saturday, September 26th, so a ton of time. But
Awesome.
tickets available for that. Okay, so we like to end with trivia. We talked about it
Okay.
before we recorded. This is end of summer because we are in the end of summer. I don't know if you can tell.
Don't
Even
say
when we're
it.
playing
Stop.
kickball, it's like so
Jonathan,
dark
don't
at 8 p.m.
say it.
Yeah.
It's wild.
It's misty in the mornings.
It's
by my
misty,
house
it's cold.
now.
You can smell it. That was one of my favorite things growing up.
Went too fast.
Is when you're going to school and like when school starts in September,
Uh-huh.
there's that smell of like early fall. It
Yeah.
just smells like school starting to me.
Yeah.
So if there's any teachers listening, you're probably prepping your classroom right now. It starts any minute. Okay, so we call this Angee's Arena. The way that it works is you just shout out the answer if you know it. Your verse is Angee.
Yay.
Sometimes she wins. She usually doesn't.
I don't
She
usually.
usually wins.
I'm excited.
Okay.
All
This
right.
is general. There'll be some movies. There'll be some music. It all has to do with summer or end of summer or maybe just the middle of summer
right.
because I was struggling with questions that were this specific. Sometimes there's a multiple choice and I will tell you. Okay, here we go. Question 1. Actually, let me write down everyone's name here so I can get scores. So we'll just do
It's you
HS for
guys
Human
against me,
Services
not
and then
individuals.
Angie.
Okay, so
Yeah, you're on a
Do you
team.
have a cheat sheet over there you're
No.
looking at?
No.
Okay.
I wish.
Making sure, no
you
cheating.
didn't get the answers beforehand.
No, I wish.
I don't even know the questions.
She very much
so
wishes.
I'm going to lose.
Okay, question 1. This one's multiple choice because I feel like none of you will know it, but I did this just for me. Metalcore band from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, formed
August
in-
Burns Red,
Wow.
What?
Lancaster,
You
Pennsylvania.
don't have to finish.
How did you know that?
Holy cow.
Constellations is like the first metalcore band album that I listened to ever in 9th grade.
Oh.
I should
They
have known
remixed that album a few years back. Incredible. Once I heard Lancaster.
That's a strong lead, Drew.
In 2003, yeah, with hits such as Whitewashed and Mariana's Trench. Yeah, August Burns Red. There you go.
Okay.
All right.
Let me just say the names of the multiple choice that I was going to give you. I just made these up. August is Falling, August Horizon, or Bring Me August.
And what's August
August
Burns
Burns
Red?
Red. Yeah.
What was the question? Because once you said
It was just metalcore. For some reason, whenever I do questions, I like to make it like trivia. So I did metalcore band from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, formed in 2003 with hits such as Whitewash and Mariana's Trench.
yeah. Check them
Okay.
out.
They're great. Love August Burns Red.
I
Okay.
love anything that makes Drew smile.
Me
I
too.
wasn't expecting him to
Me
just know
too.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, 2009 film starring Jesse Eisenberg, Kristen Stewart, and Ryan Reynolds that depicts a college grad in 1987 returning home for a summer job at a local amusement park. Okay, multiple choice. A, Adventureland. B, Action Point. C, Six Flags Fun. Or D, The Land of the Lost.
The Land of the Lost.
No.
The first one.
Yeah, Adventureland. Good job.
Adventureland. Okay.
Have you not seen that?
No.
Oh, it's good.
Apparently not. I got it
It's got a
wrong.
good end of summer feeling.
Number 1 just felt right to me,
Okay.
but I've never seen it.
Okay. It's 1-1.
You didn't like Six Flags Fun? That's such a bad name. I don't know. Okay. It's like when you do bar trivia or something and they give you the most obvious non-answer.
Yeah,
or like sometimes in Jeopardy, they're like, clearly it's not that. So, Okay, question 3. What is another, perhaps more popular name for the first day of fall in the Northern Hemisphere?
Autumn.
But give me the full thing. The first
Autumn
day
solstice.
Of fall. Well,
Wait, what'd you say?
Fall solstice.
the first day. Autumn.
Autumn solstice.
No,
Autumn equinox?
Yes, autumn equinox. Did I get that
Oh,
right?
I got one.
You guys had me like questioning.
Ooh, autumn equinox.
Good job.
Very
The official
nice.
start of the astronomical fall in the Northern Hemisphere. Thank you. Okay. I thought for a second I had it wrong.
Autumn equinox.
Good job. Okay, so the score is right now 2-1.
2-1.
Question 4. Upcoming event in downtown Auburn
Hops and crops.
that since last year has marked the unofficial end of summer. We just talked about it.
Oh.
Party in the Plaza?
Party in the
Good
Plaza.
job.
Good job, Julie.
Wait, who got that one?
You did.
You did. You said it first.
It
But
is the unofficial
I
end of
thought it
summer
first.
event that I'm crowning it that.
Okay.
Party in the Plaza. Come to it on Friday. Question 5. What is the name of the full moon occurring closest to the autumnal equinox?
It's a harvest moon.
Good job.
Oh my
Ooh,
God, Jody.
Jody.
You know your autumn facts.
Yeah, I'm like, Jody's going to know this. Talking about harvest and all that
The
stuff.
harvest moon. She's,
harvest moon.
She's talking about growing plants. It's an important moon for sure. Angee, I think you have to go on a run of getting these next 4 if you want to win.
Okay.
Question 6. In Jaws, Chief Brody protects what fictional island community?
Amity Island.
Good job.
Oh, nice job.
You knew I
Yeah.
wouldn't know that.
I had multiple choice just in case nobody did.
Yeah. That's a great movie.
is a great
that's
movie.
the quintessential summer movie right
With the
there.
animated jaw.
Yeah.
Jonathan watches it every July 4th.
Every 4th of July.
Yeah.
Because it happens on 4th of July weekend.
Yeah. There's some great one-liners in that movie.
Absolutely. I like
Absolute.
my favorite part is the what? When he's
Yeah. Yeah. He's like,
Then
what
the
kind of
boat?
shark is it?
Yeah.
He's like, it's a tiger shark. He's like,
Oh, what? It's so good.
I've never seen it.
Great movie.
Great movie. Have you seen? You haven't
Yeah.
seen it? Angie, you got to watch it.
I know.
For somebody who, I think it would be boring to some people who are in your age range, but just give it a chance.
Okay.
Because it is quintessential summer movie. It's like widely considered the first blockbuster. It created the PG-13 rating for movies. They didn't have that before.
Because people are being eaten by a shark.
And the movie struck fear basically into an entire generation
Yeah.
of people where
Don't
they
get
would
in the
people
water.
wouldn't get in the water. I mean,
Exactly.
it's,
It's what made
Really?
people scared of sharks.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Didn't know that.
First time I ever saw it, I couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's wild.
A lot of fake
Yeah.
red blood.
Ashley's mom,
and-
she still thinks that people just get eaten by sharks, and it's like no. If you get attacked by a shark, it is so incredibly rare that it basically never happens. More on the East Coast, if anything. In the West Coast, you're never going to
They're
get.
coming up to take a nibble is what they're taking.
Yeah, and it's like the way they explain it is sharks can't smell, right? They taste, so they don't know what you are. They're just going to like take a little chunk. Oh, okay. Oh, that's not what I want. So unfortunately, that's just the way that sharks are. Nothing to be afraid of.
Okay.
Be a little bit afraid. I shouldn't just say that.
Use
Don't go
caution.
swimming with like great white sharks, right? Don't do that. Don't chum the water and get in there. But like in terms of in the ocean, there's a lot worse things than sharks. Okay, question 7. Angie, you've already lost, but we're gonna keep going.
Okay, sorry.
It is currently, I think it's, what is it? 5-1? Yeah. Angie, great job. Question 7. According to Earth, Wind, and Fire September, what night of September should listeners remember?
Come on, it's Earth, Wind, and Fire. Do you even
Angie,
know
you
who
know
that
this.
is?
September?
What?
Earth, Wind, and Fire? You know this song. Ba-da-da-da-da. Ba-
It's
Do
always
you
playing
remember?
the December?
September.
Is it 21st?
Yes. The
21st
21st night of
September.
September.
Yeah.
September.
Damn it. That's a song that's always played at Hagen's growing
Yeah.
up.
It's played everywhere, yeah.
It was always.
Hagen's.
Great song. 21st night of September.
It's played at,
Yeah.
you see it a lot in
I
weddings.
sing that song, but I always don't actually sing the words right. I'll go
The summer of September.
And sometimes I'll say December.
I thought she'd go, who's Earth, Wind, and Fire?
You
I mean
know
that
it, though.
too,
21st night of September.
21st night of September.
Dancing in September. Okay. Question 8. What? Speaking of big dogs, what nickname do the children in the Sandlot give the enormous dog living beyond the outfield fence?
Oh,
It's a nickname.
a big sloppy dog in the Sandlot.
That dog looked like
The dog, you
that I
saw.
saw
Uh-huh.
earlier this week.
What is
might have
that
been
dog's
his.
name?
Gosh, I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid.
I'll just throw it out there. This one's for the house. I'm writing down house.
Okay, go ahead.
It's The Beast.
The Beast.
Yeah.
Sloppy.
Have you not seen The Sandlot either?
I saw it in middle school.
I feel like James.
You're
that would
killing
be
me,
one he would want
Smalls.
to.
Killing me,
Yeah.
Smalls.
I've seen that.
Do you want some more?
S'mores? Yeah. Some more what?
Some more.
It was a movie we watched in middle school on like the last day of school. That was like the last.
Oh, it's a great summer movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great ending to that movie too.
Yeah.
The Beast.
Yeah.
That's the dog
Benny the Jet
who's,
Rodriguez? Benny the
Rodriguez.
Jet Rodriguez. As a boy, I don't know if Drew had this. As a boy growing up with that movie, all you wanted to do was be Benny because he was so cool. He was so fast and he could hit the ball really well.
He had
incredible.
the shoes, right?
He had the shoes.
Yeah.
The I think they were Chuck Berry's. Yeah, they were
PF Flyers.
Oh, maybe it was that. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Great movie. Question 9, last one. Which British group originally released "Cruel Summer" in 1983?
Jonathan, really? Like
Angie, come on.
Cruel Summer.
that sounds like Taylor Swift or something.
That was gonna be the bonus point.
Is this one multiple choice?
No, sorry.
Cruel Summer.
I will give you a hint.
Yes.
The name starts with a fruit.
Gosh. Do you know it?
She's so
You know
upset.
it.
Jonathan.
The name
fruit.
starts with a fruit that is called a banana.
Banana.
Banana split.
Nope. Bananarama.
What?
That's for the house.
Bananarama.
Bananarama.
This was the dumbest trivia you've ever
Angie,
done.
come on. It's innocent. You're just so sad.
Like
'cause you didn't
obviously I don't know any of
Sometimes you
Bananarama.
do, though. When we did the Trivia Auburn, you somehow tied Jason.
somehow.
We still need to do an official review for that because I think there was some.
I
schmaltzing
couldn't
going
even
on.
fight for half points in this one.
Oh.
But you guys deserve a win.
I didn't know
so-
Drew was gonna know August Burns Red right out the
Right out
cut.
the
That was
gate.
crazy.
August Burns Red.
Well,
Now
good
I-
job. We prefer with the guest win. So
We prefer that.
good job.
Good job.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll have to get you back to talk about junk removal.
Yes.
We'll
Thanks for
feature
all that you
in the
do for the
mirrors.
city.
Absolutely, super important
You're
work.
welcome.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're in a people business. We're invested in people.
I'm
Absolutely.
obsessed with that. And I
That's what
think
we do.
we should end the show with some twinkle fingers.
I'm not doing
Should we do
that.
the twinkle
I
fingers?
am not doing that. They tried to get me to do this before the show. I said I'm not doing it. And now that the
He's still
cameras
not
are
doing it.
rolling,
Come on,
They
twinkle
want me to
fingers.
do
You
it.
can do
Yeah, we
it,
thought
Drew.
about it.
Even just a pinky.
no.
Well, thank you,
No.
Jason. Okay. Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.